I'd like to start getting home delivery of the New York Times.
Now you can get the New York Times delivered to your home for 50%.
By the late 90s, the newspaper industry was facing the major threats in the way they had always done the business. And readers were increasingly moving to the internet as the new channel for news information.
Readers, especially younger readers, are shifting to the internet.
My children do not read the newspaper. My children get all of their news online.
I don't even subscribe anymore.
This, with the struggling economic situation, led advertising revenues to fall back to the level in 1950s. In addition, aggregators and social media were increasingly moving into the news space and becoming an easier avenue for younger generations. To combat these threats, over the next decade, New York Times Digital attempted two paywall initiatives in 1996 and 2005 with limited success. In 2011, New York Times Digital launched their latest subscription package, which drew in subscription revenue from loyal readers while maintaining attractiveness for casual visitors. The paywall initiative in 2011 overcame a significant threat to the changing revenue structure of New York Times. The initiative set them on track for subscription revenues to overtake the loss corresponding from the digital advertisement revenues. This represented a significant early move into a new important space for all the media companies where revenues had traditionally come from the advertisement. However, implementing the paywall in 2011 was not easy. New York Times faced extreme challenges from internal stakeholders, competitors, and the general public.
I'm sad to see the New York Times trying to charge for all the reasons I mentioned, that I think charging is a problem, and also because I think it'll make the New York Times, it'll make it shrink.
Despite all the critics, New York Times has been generating $150 million through digital subscribers with 100,000 new signups every year. Also, The Guardian, a relative competitor with a similar online traffic base, generates only $85 million through digital subscriptions, compared with New York Times' $360 million. So, how could New York Times be so agile in shifting the revenue stream to paywall so successfully compared to any other competitors? Janet Robinson was a visionary and strong CEO. With the support from the chairman, she went against the market and internal senior manager Martin Nischenholz, who was known as digital guru of New York Times. Martin still believed that the company was still very much in the traditional advertising business, and the vast majority of the users wouldn't appreciate the paywall. And also the market's view was that paywall wouldn't work because it was not needed and the people just weren't prepared to pay for a high-quality content on the internet. Against all the negativities, Janet managed to push through and eventually implemented the paywall in 2011. Another decision that gave New York Times the necessary agility to successfully implement the paywall was the creation of focused and empowered teams. The leadership shifted around the top managers and created focused structures. One of the most instrumental managers in the paywall implementation was Paul Smurl. Paul was responsible for the development, implementation, and financial performance of the paywall. The external market was also changing at the same time. The adaptive strategy of New York Times helped to extract the most out of the circumstances. First, Apple and Amazon were educating people to pay for the products and services online. Secondly, not only people's customs were changing, but also the platforms at which news could be delivered. The Kindle was already in the market, and the Apple launch was scheduled for the late 2010, which was in line with the paywall's launch. And lastly, New York Times kept a healthy balance sheet, accumulating cash while waiting for the right moment to strike with the paid content move. Having the financial resources in place when the right moment came was crucial. Investments in the paywall project exceeded $40 million. In summary, it was both intuition and the data-driven approach. On the one side, Janet Robinson used her vision and intuition to implement on the right timing for the growth of New York Times. And on the other hand, the digital team ran many experiments before concluding that the paywall had a great chance to succeed. And eventually, the whole process of implementing the paywall actually changed the culture of the New York Times. Thank you for listening. This is group number 2 about New York Times case.